All right, that's rolling. So,
All right.
yeah, it's just a second. But
Yeah.
I'm going to the kids.
All right. Have fun.
It might actually be a cool topic for them to hear.
Yeah.
Probably. But,
You want them in here?
if they already have a good lesson prepared, I don't want to take that away from the teacher.
Are you teaching it?
It's not very good.
It'll be fine.
All right, so
Well, anyway, whatever you want to do.
I put this together a while ago, and I've been kind of just building off of it. And I took back in college, took a theological issues and missiology class, and we spent an entire day just talking about hell. And it kind of prompted my interest in looking more into this. So not just kind of just what exactly is hell, what does it say, who goes there, and kind of just stuff like that. So this is going to be, I planned it to be a 2-part series, but we'll see how far we get. It may be a little bit longer.
It's just kind of funny how our society has this word in its vocabulary and they use it non-stop. And the people who use it don't even believe it. They say it carelessly. Or they say GD carelessly.
It's because they just plug it in with a bad place.
Yeah.
And then don't put much thought behind anything else. And they do that with a lot of words.
Yeah.
Soul, all my soul, I love you with all, but they really don't know what it means. Same thing with hell, they really don't know what it means.
Yeah.
They might think of it. They don't put much thought behind it because we live in a society
It's just common.
well, just right. Anything, it's all quick.
Yep.
The news is quick, words are quick, no thought behind it, no critical thinking.
You know what? Like this guy.
All right.
Keep that. Matt can look at us easy.
There you
He
go.
doesn't have to bounce around.
I don't got to do that. You just look right
So
here.
if you start looking over there, we lost you.
Just gonna move this over.
Okay, you lost.
So I'm gonna take 2 directions with this. First, I want to just kind of zoom out and just look at it in a plain survey manner. So we're just gonna go over just the generalities, and then when we finish that, the next time we talk about this, it'll be a more of a zoom in, who goes there and why why is it eternal. So that's just to kind of let you know where I'm going. So best way I found to do this is just by looking at different passages to kind of see what the words in Hebrew and Greek for hell were and how they were used and why they were used. So I'm going to try to go in order. So I started in Genesis 37, 35. We're going to start with looking at the Old Testament. Genesis 37:35 says, I'm using mostly the NASB. Then all his sons and all his daughters arose to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. And he said, surely I will go down to Sheol in mourning for my son. So his father wept for him. This is, just kind of just going to look at that specific word. In this context, Jacob was talking about the grave. He was talking about going with his son Joseph. He was just comparing, thinking his son Joseph died. He said, I just want to join him in death. Is what it says. The word Sheol here is referring to the grave. And,
That's Hebrew, right? Sheol is Hebrew.
Yep, Sheol's Hebrew. It is Hebrew. So the next passage is going to look at his Numbers. I won't read the full thing, but this is kind of when Korah and his rebellion came against Moses. And verse 31 through 33 specifically, kind of after Moses was speaking this, the earth opened up its mouth and swallowed them up and their households, all the men who belonged to Korah with their possessions. So they and all that belonged to them went alive to Sheol. And the earth closed over them, and they perished from the midst of the assembly. So we see them being swallowed alive into a pit, perishing forever. This is the same word, Sheol, but something here happens that hasn't been seen before. People were literally being swallowed alive down, as they would say, to death. You see, in the context of these, it's speaking about damnation and condemnation. And kind of quick thought, is there any reason to think that this is not eternal, where they're going?
Because, it seems like Sheol in this passage, do you think it means the hell?
And literally the grave.
So it almost seems like it'd be both. Is that what you're implying?
Yeah.
So it's both.
Yeah, because they were swallowed alive to death. They died. But also, the way the passage kind of opened up was the ground opened up, swallowed them alive, and closed on them. It's pretty graphic
It just might. I thought it was just that he just killed them, and then because they have to go through the judgment first, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's interesting. It's one of those passages you kind of just read over. It's like, this is a really good story. It's hard to stop and think about words like that.
Yeah,
you're right. It could very well be.
What is the definition of the word?
Oh, we're actually going to get down to that.
Because that's why, I mean, I'm asking now because when I look at the word, I mean, it's not given a description nor.
You know, I should have brought. I did a project and I took a Psalms class on the word Sheol. It was like, I should have brought that. That would have been great if I would have posted up here. Because I don't remember all of it off the top of my head, but I kind of went down to several. One of these were the passages, kind of looking at that word Sheol and using it in its context. But I do have a little chart up here that, well, I guess I could just skip ahead and show you right now. The word.
He has it right there. Boom.
The word Sheol. So first, it's the grave. It's a state of being all living organisms eventually face inevitable physical death.
Right.
It's the grave. Then it seems to be talking. Well, and we'll look at the other verse. It seems to be talking about the pit / condemnation, which is just they take it in a little bit of a different way, which seems to imply a divine judgment from God, a place of punishment for the wicked.
It's no different than, for example, when the Bible uses the phrase "the sons of God."
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the phrase "son of God" can mean, or not son of God. What am I thinking?
Son of
In
man?
Colossians, when it says he is the firstborn. Firstborn. That's the word I'm
Okay.
talking about. Firstborn. It says he's the firstborn of all creation. Well, that doesn't mean that he's the firstborn of like the first thing created. It means that he's above all the things that were created.
Yep.
So that has a dual meaning.
Dual meaning, yeah.
It could mean you're literally the first thing, the first person born in your family, or it can mean something else. It can mean you're preeminent.
Yeah.
Because you read the Psalms, it says that I have made you my firstborn. Okay, so it's got to have two meanings if that's really the case. So yeah, this is a common thing. It's not like, oh, you're just trying to get around. No, it's just.
Didn't they argue back then over whether there was a hell? Wasn't there some kind of rift back then between the?
There was the wording of Sheol as like.
It's more like the Sanhedrin and the Pharisees.
Yeah.
The Sanhedrin didn't believe in angels or hell or anything like that, and then the Pharisees, they were the religious ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was even then.
And then yeah. So kind of continue on. We're going to look at two other verses in the Old Testament to kind of pull out where I got that second one from and the first one. So Isaiah 14:3-12. Wait a minute. Oh yeah, I forgot to do that. I changed that on here, but I didn't change it on here. Well, essentially, this is a prophecy given by Isaiah. Sounds like he's talking about a king, but then you read at the end there, at verse 11, "How have you fallen from heaven, O star of the morning, son of the dawn? You have been cut down to the earth. You have weakened the nations." It's talking about Satan in this passage. So actually, for a while, I didn't realize he was talking about that, and I was like, wait a minute. And so we see in this passage, he's using Sheol here as like mocking Satan, showing what's in store for him, like a death worthy of a tyrant.
Your pomp and all,
your pomp
and the music of your harps have been brought down to Sheol.
You know, maggots are spread out as your bed beneath you, and worms are your covering. So it's we see this is talking about death itself. People could. I would say this is talking about. I don't know. It's hard to say whether this one's talking about death. I mean, he's talking about Satan. Satan, obviously, he's in hell. We can't just slay him down to the ground. He's an angel. It's a little different.
We know that the Bible uses hyperbole. It says things that's just so dramatic. He's just trying to find the words just to express himself. That's why when you see in the Old Testament when he says, I want you to go in there and kill everyone. When the Bible gives that command, most of the time they didn't really kill everybody. In fact, a lot of the people kind of they escaped the city, because you'll find out he'll say, go in there and destroy them, every one of them. And then later on, you find out they're doing trade with the same people. So there are a lot of times when Joshua would give a command, it was hyperbole. It was just like to express how he's like, and then we're gonna go in there and we're gonna destroy them, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So maggots are gonna spread. Do you think he's really gonna be maggots?
Yeah, no. Yeah, no, that's good. It's good. That's good. And the other passage is Daniel 12:1-2. And in this passage we see it's talking about the end times, and verses 1-2 is what we have up there. Now at this time Michael, the great prince who stands guard over the sons of your people, will arise. There will be a time of distress such as never occurred since there was a nation till that time. And at the time your people, everyone who is found written in the book, will be rescued. Many of those who sleep in the dust of the ground will awake, these to everlasting life, but others to disgrace and everlasting contempt. So see here in this passage is a comparison between those who are going on to everlasting life and those who are going to something very opposite, everlasting contempt. And we have the mention of the book of life, which is written in the book. I believe that's the book of life he's talking about.
There's a good passage if people say the doctrine of hell was just invented in the church. You can say, well, no, look at Daniel. It's right there. People have said that. They say, where do you find anything about hell in the Old Testament?
Look at that. So that's where I got these definitions of the use of Sheol. Obviously, you could probably string more out of it, but I just generalized it to basic. You said the grave and then condemnation, which is talking about punishment, judgment from God. So, New Testament, we're going to go a little bit more in detail. I got a lot more definitions, but specifically, we're going to be looking at. Let's see what I got on here. Gehenna, the Greek word Gehenna, used for hell, is what I mainly look at. So, first passage is Matthew 5:21 through 22. Verse 22 talks about not being angry with your brother. And at the end there mentions, you shall be guilty before the Supreme Court. Whoever says you fool shall be guilty enough to go into the fiery hell. I don't believe Jesus is talking about an earthly judgment here. I don't believe, because you hate your brother, you're going to get pulled before the courts of Jerusalem, and they're going to say, no, like obviously he's talking about a heavenly judgment here. He's talking about the courts before God, and he concludes with talking about hell as a fiery hell, a place of judgment, of divine judgment.
It's like you hear this passage and you want to wonder, is this in the millennial kingdom? This is going to be the judgment that takes place? You find out, hey, this man hates his brother. He's on trial.
Yeah.
And yes, he expresses his I hate him. Or he says, you fool. I don't know if that's what he's talking about. If he's talking about the millennial kingdom, this is the type of judgment you're going to see. Because that's why Christ came. He was going to set up his kingdom.
Yep.
So you read all the things that he taught. He's like, get ready. This is what's going to happen. And then they cut him off. So is that what you were saying in the millennial kingdom? This is the type of judgment that's going to take place.
Honestly, I wasn't saying for it or against that. I was just in the point of it was just to
like a heavenly judgment.
Point at looking at just the linguistic aspects of the word hell being used.
Here's something we can look into. I see two different descriptions of hell from the Old Testament to the New Testament. I see one that says fiery and one that talks about maggots. So how do we know? Is that the first time we hear in the Bible that it's a fiery hell? Or are they talking about two different hells here? I mean,
well, there was that passage again in Numbers.
Right.
Fire came forth and the Lord consumed them. They were pulled down. Obviously it doesn't say they were pulled down to the fiery hell there. It's just that, this earth swallowed and they went down to Sheol, and then fire also came forth from the Lord and consumed 250 men. Do those relate? Not necessarily, but maybe you can draw a sort of comparison to the Lord's fire versus...
Can you go down just a little bit?
To Isaiah?
Now in Isaiah, is he specifically talking about Satan? He says, your pomp and music of your harps have been brought down to Sheol, maggots. But the maggots are spread out as your bed beneath you. Sounds like the actual... What happens when you're in your grave? Maggots come and cover you, and they eat your flesh. And then it says, and worms are your covering. Again, you're in the ground. Worms are what's coming. So that sounds very similar to a common grave.
Yeah, a physical common death.
They would have seen that. They would have visually been able to witness something like that.
I mean, word pictures paint. What's the word I'm looking for? They paint intense images. I mean, Can you use? I believe. Could you use physical death like this to describe just the horror of what befalls someone? I don't see why not. Because the next sentence, linguistically, it doesn't really make sense. How can you be saying that about Satan right now? I mean, we read in Revelation, he's going to be cast into the lake of fire. He's not going to be spread before maggots.
Is this passage so this passage is just talking about Satan?
That's what I believe it is. I could be
I'd
wrong.
have to
It could be
read
talking
it.
about at the beginning.
I thought it was
because it was talking
the
about
kings and
Babylon.
the
Yeah, but it was
nations.
talking
Yeah.
about the kings of the nations. But then that's why I thought, okay, first time I really looked this over, I thought it was just talking about the kings of the nation. It could be that it starts by talking about the kings of the nation and then it
Yeah,
transitions
the
to
cypress
the true evil.
definitely represented Babylon,
Mm-hmm.
and then O Star of the Morning, that could have been like Nebuchadnezzar or anything like that. I don't know. I'm not familiar with this passage, but it seems like to me this is like a grave type thing. He's
Yeah.
going to destroy the kings and bring them to the grave.
Yeah, it definitely could
Probably
be
likely
talking
what
about
was
that.
happening is they thought they were all that. And God just looks at them and says, okay, this is what's going to happen here.
Mm-hmm.
Man, when God speaks, it's terrifying.
It is. And then we talked about the
Does
everlasting
that
content.
kind of make sense?
But yeah, there was. I definitely I know based off of like a lot of Old Testament passages, hell again it was seen as outer darkness, everlasting content. There wasn't specifics on fiery hell. Like that wasn't. I think a little bit in the Psalms. I could be wrong. I couldn't find the passage. I forgot about the Psalms when I was putting the Old Testament together. I wanted to focus mainly on the New Testament, which I'll have to go back and edit that and really see if I can add some Psalms in that.
So it's the soul that goes to hell, right?
Oh, yeah.
And the soul is not physical, it's not.
Yeah.
Soul, it really, I mean, I don't know.
So you're wondering how the soul can experience pain in a fire?
We'll look at that in the New Testament. That's one of the passages where I highlighted that. And so when we get to that, we'll definitely get to talk about that. So the next passage is Matthew 25, 31 through 46.
God is a spirit, and says he's grieved and he experiences pain, sorrow.
It's probably
That's
one
true.
of those things that are hard to comprehend. Being in a body,
Also, we receive glorified bodies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we go on and live in paradise. It would seem like the dead also, it says they're risen, and then they're cast into like a fire. So they may not just be spirits, they may have bodies as well.
Okay.
We have glorified bodies, they may receive bodies just as we did, and that's when they're thrown into this
Oh yeah,
lake of fire, you know what I mean?
that's what I definitely believe that. I definitely hold that. They're risen too, they're reunited with their body, and then they're thrown back in hell. Which
then they would have
Sucks.
to
Yeah.
feel the physical pain.
very, very, very terrible pain.
Probably more than physical, though. It'd probably be mental anguish.
Yeah, imagine just being in a room for the rest of eternity. That's it. That's your punishment. That's it. It's dark. That's another thing. That's enough. I mean, that's enough. Like
Yeah. And this is like so much worse than that. Shoot. Sorry, hold on. Bothers me. This next passage is talking about the end times. The angel will come and divide. Christ will gather the righteous. Verse 41 says, Then he will say to those on his left, Depart from me, accursed ones, into the eternal fire, which has been prepared for the devil and his angels. I was hungry, you had nothing to eat. A stranger, did not invite me in. They will say to themselves, Lord, when we see you hungry or thirsty or naked, then he will answer them, Should I say to you, to the extent that you did not do to one of the least of these, you did not do unto me? And these will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous into eternal life. So we see in this passage a few things concerning the last judgment. We see that Christ is going to gather up all people from all nations and divide them into two categories, between the righteous and the unrighteous, between those blessed by the Heavenly Father and those not blessed by Him. The blessed are the kingdom that they inherited from the foundations of the world. What would they have done? They have done for their own. They did it unto Christ. The opposite have a very different future. The opposite goes with those. Am I right here?
So you have nations here. This is the setting.
Mm-hmm.
God is on His throne, and He says, "I'm going to separate the nations, the righteous and the unrighteous." And these criteria for righteous and unrighteous is what He says there. You fed me. You gave me drink. You helped me when I was cold and sick. Is that saying the nations that care for the Christians, that provide for God's church, I should say? Or is that saying on an individual level, that guy kind of didn't help that guy out? Or is
Yeah.
it saying the nation? Because it's talking about nations here.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts? What do you think? Do you think he's saying to that nation, you guys have been persecuting Christians? There are countries like Saudi Arabia, they'll cut your head off to find you're a Christian. There are other nations like the United States that you find out, I don't know. I mean,
And then you also got people in the United States who.
yeah, again, that's why he brought it to the level of nations. Then you can bring it down to the level of individuals
Yeah.
and say that guy specifically did not help that guy specifically. So,
You know what? I should have looked at the word "you." There's a few in English. It's just "you," but in the Greek, there are different uses of the word "you." I should have looked at it a little bit more. There is like "you" for like general, "you people," and then there's "you individual," and then there's "you group." I think there's one more. I can't remember.
it is hard though because it says that you're going to go into, in the very last verse, these will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous into everlasting life.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, how can you're going to send a whole nation? You know, that's the
It
thing.
seems to
Whole
be
nation
separating the
would be-
righteous from the unrighteous. I mean, I also take it in light of all of Scripture. Obviously, one isn't saved because of their works. You know, we're not saved because
Of course.
we gave someone water or we gave someone food or we fed someone. You know, we have unbelievers doing that who will, in the last days, Christ will say, "Away from me, who do evil." So I just, for the, as a result of being saved, naturally, a believer whose heart's been transformed, usually does stuff like this. Is kind of what I'd say on that. I don't know if that helps.
No, that's good.
Okay. So verse 41, I just wanted to point out, verse 41 says that hell, the eternal fire, was prepared for the devil and his angels. That it wasn't prepared for humans originally. Like, this is a place that people are going that was prepared for the devil and his angels. And so it's sad. And it's described as a real place of eternal fire, that fire that never ceases to go out. And
So, would he have been left on earth had Satan failed with Adam and Eve? Or was he given one shot at it?
I'm sorry, what was your question?
When Adam and Eve were perfect in
Yeah.
the Garden of Eden, and Satan came down, so he came to earth, and he tempted Eve. If he had failed there, there'd be nothing left for him to do. And at that point, would he have been cast to the fire that he said he would have prepared for him?
You know, I've thought
Or
about
do you
that.
think that he would have been left on earth for a specific amount of time? It's interesting because it says he was prepared for him,
Mm-hmm.
but he was never put in it right away.
Yeah. That's a good question.
Well, there was nobody there to go with him, so he didn't. I don't know.
Jude. I think it's Jude that we'll look at parts of Jude that said some of the angels were immediately, they're from the very beginning, placed in chains. Some of the very, very, crazy.
The bottom of the Euphrates River says, to be unloosed in Revelation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they were so wicked they wouldn't even follow the devil.
Wouldn't it be safe to say that? I mean, that was a good question, but to go with your question, we know the Bible is the story from the beginning to the end, right?
Right.
So it had the storyline has to play out.
Mhm.
So he created hell for him, but he had to eventually get there. The story plays out.
Yeah. Without imparting on free will of man's choice. That's crazy. It's a crazy to think about. That's a good question. I don't know.
And it's not like
About
he could have. Adam and Eve, they tried to make that excuse. Hey, he tempted me. It still didn't fly. He said, no, it doesn't matter. You should not have done it. I told you not to do it, and you did it. I don't care who tempts you.
Yeah.
So.
That's all we're going to look at there. Matthew 8, 11 through 12. I say to you that many will come from the east and the west and recline at the table with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven, but the sons of the kingdom will be cast out into the outer darkness. Outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So he's talking about Gentiles right now. This is after he's the Roman centurion, I think. I did pull it out of context, should have had the surrounding verse. I think it was just after the Roman centurion was like, heal my sick son.
I know what Darius is. He had a sick daughter.
Yeah.
His daughter was sick.
And this is just after this. And, there's, obviously he's talking about Pharisees here, but where am I in my notes? Okay. So he's giving a comparison in the future. He's comparing Gentiles who will follow God and live with him forever versus the Jews in Israel who will turn their backs on God, resulting in them being thrown into the outer darkness. And he explains it as the place full of weeping and gnashing of teeth. So we see that this is a place of extreme suffering. It's not a place of, just you're going to sit in darkness. There's weeping and gnashing of teeth. There's suffering involved going on here. It's not just, and just sit in darkness.
And again, gnashing of teeth, like you said, could be physical or it could be mental.
Mm-hmm.
When someone's angry, they're gonna gnash your teeth.
Yeah.
They don't have to be physical pain. They could just be psychological torture.
Yeah, which I guarantee you there will be that too. Which,
The guilt of how foolish they were, the opportunities they had.
All at once. Everything.
Yeah.
Hit all at once.
you ever think that maybe those who are in hell won't even feel that they'll just be mad?
It could be just man. I don't know. That's why
I don't know,
God
like-
gave us that little snippet of the rich man and Lazarus.
That's what we actually,
That's why he had a.
one of the things we'll be going over. But no, that's definitely a good point. He was like, crap.
He was a thinking, conscious man who was aware of his surroundings and he saw everything and he, man.
Yeah. So this next portion, I won't read this whole thing, but this is a parable of the sower with sows seeds in his field, and then someone came and sowed weeds in there. And so Jesus kind of goes on to explain what this is. And his disciples say, what does this mean? He said, the one who sows good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world. And as for the good seed, these are the sons of the kingdom. And the tares, which weeds, are the sons of the evil one. And the enemy who sowed them is the devil. And the harvest is at the end of the age, or the reapers are the angels. Just so the tares are gathered up and burned with fire, so shall it be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send forth his angels, and they will gather out of his kingdom all stumbling blocks and those who commit lawlessness, and will throw them into the furnace of fire. In that place there will be, again, weeping and gnashing of teeth. The same place, the same punishment described in the outer darkness. Then the righteous will shine forth as the sun in their kingdom of their Father. He who has ears, let them hear. So, a couple things to point out.
Can you imagine being a Jew and hearing that?
One of my
When you read it
favorites
now,
is-
it's kind of like just, okay. Imagine just sitting there and this is the first time you heard this. He just said, if you don't, he gave his he explained exactly what it meant, and he laid it out and told them. No wonder the Pharisees were so outraged.
Yeah, I mean, he really just spit it at them. And they were like,
That's
Let's
why they
kill
said
him.
this guy speaks with authority. He doesn't just speak as though he's another scribe.
Yeah.
He speaks.
Like he knows what he's
It's
talking
different.
about.
This-
Like, yeah,
Something's different here. Yeah.
that's amazing. So we see the weeds are the sons of the devil. The devil is the one who planted the seeds. And verses 41 through 42 talks about how the end of the age, the angels will gather up those who do evil, the sons and daughters of the devil, and will cast them into the fiery furnace, place of weeping and gnashing of teeth. So we see that as compared to Matthew 8:11 through 12, which we just looked at here, it's the same weeping and gnashing of teeth that he's talking about. I believe you could infer that this is the same place he's talking about, a place of eternal judgment. Some people argue maybe that's a different place, but I don't really. You're using a different way to describe. I mean, you could describe the same thing in multiple different ways. I believe he's just describing the same place in a different way. There. So, yeah, talking about the same place.
See, was that? Are you talking about which?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was comparing that to Matthew 8:11 through 12 when he was talking about casting those out into the outer darkness, a place where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. People will be like, how is there out darkness here but fiery hell? Well, he's just describing the same thing. He's describing it here as outer darkness, where there'll be weeping and gnashing of teeth, but over here he's describing it as a fiery burn, which is where there'll be weeping and gnashing of teeth.
I know that could be smoke.
Could be smoke. That's another way it could be
It's
describing
dark.
smoke.
You're not gonna be able to see it. Anything.
It's just, because if you ever like near something that's just burning, like that thick, dark, black smoke, like I've seen a building, it's hard to see. It's actually hard to see the building when there's all that smoke.
Yeah.
So it could definitely be talking about the outer darkness of the smoke. Maybe it could be comparing it to, I don't know. I've heard some people say maybe that could be, psychological, just outer darkness. I don't know. Kind of like what they feel. I don't really know if there's much to that,
When
but
they use the phrase outer darkness when you're going to inner.
You're out of heaven.
That's weird. Well,
Yeah.
out of heaven.
it's the separation outer is a way to think of it. So, so this is another passage, 18:4 through 9, Matthew 18. Just kind of talking, if something causes your stomach, cut it off. It's not so much the analogy I want to put, but like kind of where he goes with it. Better to have two hands and have, and to be cast into the eternal fire. Cast into the fiery hell there at the end. So he's describing this place as an eternal fire, a place of fiery hell. Obviously he's teaching a specific lesson here, but the purpose of this was just to focus on the word hell. Just how he's describing it.
He's showing how bad hell is. He says, cut your arm off if you have to. Don't go there.
Yeah.
So you cut your arm off, or whatever. Cut your hand off. Take your eye out. It's worth it. Don't go there.
It's crazy. I mean, yeah.
It's that bad.
It's that bad.
Take your eye out if you have to.
So Matthew 10:28. Do not fear those who kill the body, but are unable to kill the soul. Rather, fear him who is able to destroy both the soul and body in hell. So, this is, to answer your questions, he's expecting that soul and body being destroyed in hell. So God is able to do that. How is, it's this place destroys both the body, and it's God the one who sentences, it's God who's the one who sentences people here.
Here's where I hear people say, see, your body's going to be destroyed, and your spirit's going to be destroyed. By the way,
like annihilationism.
Yeah, annihilationism. Wait, I can throw a piece of pottery on the ground, and it is destroyed.
Yeah.
It's not annihilated.
Yeah.
It's destroyed.
Honestly, that's taken out of context.
It's broken.
It's the people who take that view, which at the end, not today, but like when we finally finish it, I'll be addressing a common question. It's kind of like annihilationism.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. That's just honestly. Oh, I'm sorry. What were you gonna say?
Remember when you said body? The spirit cannot feel pain. Well, this is saying your body and your spirit will both be present in hell. In this passage, he'll destroy your body and your spirit in hell.
Yeah.
So you're going to be in hell with both.
Scary thought.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Now, is that word spirit more referring? Okay, because I'm going to get a little confused here, because I just taught on the spirit and soul and the difference, and sometimes I get a little confused. So, is that actually speaking of the soul? Because isn't there spirit?
So do you believe that we're a trichotomy or a dichotomy?
See, I believe dichotomy. So I guess
yeah. And I'm kind of in the middle.
Okay.
Because I'm trying to figure that out myself.
There is a difference.
I believe that the soul is what makes you alive. Or, excuse me, the spirit is what makes you alive and conscious and aware. The soul is totally distinct from the body. So when he says your spirit, it's more like your emotions, your thoughts, how you connect with one another.
Your soul.
And the soul is an actual entity, totally distinct from your body.
It is. The soul is your mind, your will, and your emotion. It consists of your mind, which is not physical, your emotions, which are not physical, and your will to do. Your soul is who Kyle is, who Matt is, who Ron is. That's what you.
It was unlocked when I got here.
If you read, it's in Ephesians with the sword, and in the Bible it's very clear that the spirit and the soul are different. If you read in Ephesians, Hebrews 4:12, and
I'll be right back, because I'm just going to make sure I don't...
Talks about the sword. The sword is pierces, double-edged sword is pierces
dividing soul and spirit,
divides the soul and the spirit. There's a difference. There are two different things. And what your soul is, and that's why I asked about it, is that the part that really burns, and so that means somebody's at the door.
Yeah, Kyle just spoke to him. That's a good question. I would love to talk about that later. I do believe that here it's talking about, like when you die and your soul goes with God now, that is what, with that in your body is what, and obviously your whole mind and your will be in there.
Right. That's the soul. The soul is the mind, the will, and the emotions. What I mean by that is what you take in, because our body is the flesh is the body.
Mm-hmm.
So if you break it down, we did it in a pyramid scheme: spirit, soul, and body. So when we take everything, if you look in Genesis, when Satan was tempting Eve, he used her senses, touch. Oh, I looked upon the fruit. It looked. So everything we see around us in whatever environment we live in, that's the information we're taking in. So if we're not taking in Bible, and we're just taking in, what happens is we take it in from our flesh through our senses, sight, touch, hearing. Mm-hmm. So if I live in the ghetto in the city of Detroit, let me use my own example.
Yeah.
That's all the information I'm taking into my body. Same thing. So my actions and my will, because my mind is taking that in, my emotions come off, whether it's fear, if I'm always on edge looking around. And my will to do things is my soul, because I took it all into my outside thing. You know, remember, I'm cut off from God. I'm not taking anything from the Holy Spirit, from the Spirit. Now, when I came out of that and got saved.
Are we still talking about trichotomy, dichotomy?
Yeah.
The big thing for me is this: God judges one thing. He judges your soul.
Right, and but
He's judging one thing, your soul, and then
Right.
the body is kind of like the vessel.
Right.
It's the temple.
But right, the vessel. So that's what I'm kind of talking about. So when the soul, now I've fed my soul through my body, my senses, the things I heard, the things I watched on TV, whether it be pornography, whatever I did, it changes who I am. It's who I am. Soul. But once I was saved, now I'm connected through the Spirit with God again, and I can take my information now, all my sight, everything I see. That changes what we see and how we view the world. When I'm taking my information from the Word, now that's feeding my soul. I'm feeding my soul from the Spirit. When before I was feeding my soul from the world, and I became part of the world. Now I'm a child of God. I'm saved. I read the Bible. Everything I take in is from that book, and that's what changes. That's the renewing of the mind.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
I know.
Yeah. No, that was great. So the next passage kind of actually goes a little bit more in detail with that, kind of not.
It's funny how the Bible does that, right?
Yeah. So the next passage is Matthew chapter 23, 29 through 33, which kind of talks about, like, you know, stories of body and soul, like, you know, what does it mean? So he's kind of, you know, woe is one of the woes to the Pharisees, called them hypocrites. So you testify against yourself that you are sons of those who murder the prophets. Fill up then the measure of the guilt of your fathers, you serpents, you brood of vipers. How will you escape the sentence of hell? So they are being, you know, he's calling them out. He's saying, how are you going to escape your sentence to hell? That's, you know, he's talking to the Pharisees. That's their whole being. That he's saying sentence to hell. You know, kind of correlate with that with both this body and the soul destroyed in hell. You know, that kind of makes sense to their whole being. They're sentenced to hell. Not a portion of them, but them themselves sentenced to hell. If that makes, does that make sense? Does that correlation make sense? I know it makes sense in my mind. I don't know if I'm communicating that right.
I'm sorry, I can't get over the fact that how bold he was. I'm sorry, it's just, you said this is one of the woes. I'm trying not to laugh, but it's just like, he just comes on the scene and he just starts tearing them apart.
Yeah.
He's one guy, and you have all these Pharisees, and he's just like, just roasting them.
There's oftentimes I laugh, especially when I'm reading like Matthew and stuff. When I read that, I can't help but laugh. Like it's just, he just literally sits there and he just like he calls them out.
Right, chapter 23 is where he tears apart the Pharisees. Chapter 24.
So yeah, we could see, you know.
But anyway, yeah, you're right.
Sentenced to hell. And what is, you know, he didn't sentence their mind. He didn't sentence just their body. He sentenced them to hell, which is all of them, who they are.
You know why I think the best passage that really proves that there's got to be a hell. When he said the man who's going to betray me is better off killing himself, well, what could be worse than that? Something's got to be worse than that. You better kill yourself and just go into nothingness, because, like, what's going to happen to him? You know?
Seriously.
He's saying it's better off you kill yourself.
I think I have that passage in here too.
Huh?
I think I have that passage in here too.
Yeah.
Could be wrong, but no, that's a really good point. Like, you're better off to just kill yourself than do what you're gonna do.
Yeah. Because if you do what you're gonna do, you're gonna experience something even worse. Yeah.
So Mark 9:42 through 49. I kind of bracketed some of the verses that you know, it all depends if you're KJV, you know, KJV only or not. I put it up there just to put it up there. You know, that's a discussion for another day. But kind of talking about that same passage that we were talking about in Matthew, better for you to have one hand than two hands to go into quenchable fire. Verse 47, if your eye causes you to stumble, throw it out. It is better for you to enter the kingdom of God with one eye than having two eyes to be cast into hell. For the worm does not die and the fire is not quenched, for everyone will be soaked with fire. So we see in that passage specifically, hell is described as a place of unquenchable fire. You don't quench this fire, it doesn't go out. It's an unquenchable fire, which does not sound fun. It sounds rather terrifying.
Hey, I think
like we get the, you know, terrible fires here, but eventually they're going to go out. This fire won't ever go out. It's going to constantly be going, which is not fun. Okay, so here is the portion, you know, the story about the rich man and Lazarus in Luke. So, I won't read this whole thing because obviously we don't have time to read the whole thing, and we all kind of know the
Let's
story.
take notes on that.
It's up to you. You can take notes if you want. But I just want to point out here that Jesus is telling a story about a rich man and a man named Lazarus to explain a profound truth about heaven, hell, and life on this earth. Verse 23, do I label it? Yep, in Hades, he lifted up his eyes, being in torment, and saw Abraham far away and Lazarus in his bosom. And we could talk about Abraham's bosom another time, because that's a good passage to talk about. Heaven or Abraham's bosom. Good discussion. I just want to focus on hell, though.
It's not symbolic because you talk about detail. He gives great detail in the story. He gives names. He gives, it's very specific.
Yeah,
It's not a parable. It can't be used as a parable.
It's definitely not a parable.
This is an example. Yeah.
So we see that in verse 23, in Hades he lifted up his eyes, being in torment, and saw Abraham. So we see that people are cognitive and aware of what he's this rich man. He's cognitive. He's aware of what's happening. He's in a place of torment, and we see that the poor man died and was carried away to him. The rich man also died and was buried. In Hades he lifted up his eyes. So it looks like he died and now he's in Hades. It wasn't like he's sleeping in a stage. No, he died and now he's there. No. It's like an instant. You're there. You died. You're there. He died. The poor man died. He's at Abraham's bosom.
I wonder why they use that word Hades, because wasn't...
That's the other word. I'm sorry, continue.
Yeah, but, wasn't that associated with the Greek religion of Hellenistic?
Yeah, Hades.
Yeah.
The god of the underworld.
Yeah.
Like that.
From the Hellenistic.
Yep. That's a good question.
It's the difference between like Hades and Gehenna there. They didn't use the word Gehenna, they used Hades.
Well,
Now,
that, and they also wrote it like for people to understand it. Like Hellenization, everyone knew who Hades was, what Hades was. That's what I take on that.
No, that's true.
because it's Luke who's writing this too.
Right. Yeah, because
Then Hades also.
That makes sense because there were people of all
I
different.
never thought of it that way.
And the Greek influence in that world back then was just unbelievable. So.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's Hellenization. Yeah. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, stay in your corner, man.
Verse 24, cried out, Father Abraham, have mercy on me and send Lazarus so that he may dip the tip of his finger in water and cool off my tongue, for I am in agony in this flame. So we see based upon that verse that this is in a real place where people are conscious. This rich man is conscious and he's aware and he's feeling and he's suffering immensely in this fire. I mean, he's in terrible. He's begging this Abraham to send the poor man to dip his finger to cool off because he's suffering. He's suffering in this fire. It's not just, oh, you die and it's this thought called hell. No, it's a real, like he's there, he's suffering and it sucks. And he wants it to stop. He wants just a drop of water even though he knows it's temporary. If he just had a drop, he would feel better for the rest of eternity. That's saying something. That's saying something massive. So, verse 26, and besides all this, Abraham telling him, sorry, besides all this, between you and us there is a great chasm fixed, so that those who wish to come over from here to you will not be able. We'll stop after this. Will not be able. And then none may cross over from there to us. So this verse explains that people, this is a profound truth. People, once their eternal destinations have been placed, once they die, they cannot change their judgment. That's it. You can't cross from here to there, from there to here. It's done. You're done. Hell is an eternal judgment from God that holds people in it, who are in it forever. That rich man is never getting out. The poor man, Lazarus, he's never going there. It's eternal. It's been done. They made their choices. They died. That was it. That's a clear passage right there that says the moment you die, you're judged. That's it. So if that right there, if that's not a way to
you'd have to
looking at annihilation.
You'd have to really work at it to miss the point.
Yeah.
The Bible's so crystal clear in some of these things. It's like how they mess up. They haven't read it. That's why.
Yeah, they don't read it, or they
the Bible says it. We talk about it.
Yeah. And so it's what do we got after this?
Church.
Yeah, pretty much. Because
see, that struck up a thought. When you explain,
I should have a few more passages.
You always,
It's probably
people
a good place
wonder,
to stop.
You ever hear people say, well, why would a loving God put me in hell? I'm a good person. I do some good things here and
They
there.
don't get it.
Well, yeah, they don't get it.
We'll talk about the judgment of the works too.
Yeah.
And
Well, one of the things, you know, and this just struck up a thought.
Okay, yeah, you want to end in prayer?
No, we're done.
Let's end in prayer.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, we're done. You can come in.
Go ahead.
Father God, thank you for this time that we can come and listen to a study about hell. It's a hard thing to read about, Lord, but it's really important because it helps us see the perspective of what hell is, who's going there, Father, and why we need to spread the good news of the gospel. Because as we've seen, hell is a very real place, and people are suffering, and it's eternal. And thank you that you shared us this information, God, that you didn't withhold it from us. You gave us what we needed to know. And thank you that we could just open up your word and learn from it, Lord. Bless the rest of this service, Father, as Pastor John speaks, and may we have ears to listen and a heart open. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
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 It's cool that everyone's doing different things.
Okay, get this off the screen.
I don't know.
Get this out of here, dude.